Welcome back to another episode of the Exciting Insurance Show. Exciting Insurance Show. That's like a tongue twister.
Irish wristwatch, Irish wristwatch, Irish wristwatch.
I can't say it. But this time we're here with Paul. In full disclosure, this is my dad, so I will refer to him as either Paul Walsh, Padre, or Dad.
I'm not going to call him Dad. Even if there's a fire.
Got to keep it interesting.
Yep.
Anyway, today's episode is all about auto insurance, and we're specifically doing coverages. So without further ado, let's just get into it.
Yep.
So first thing, and arguably one of the most important coverages, liability. Could you just explain to someone as if I was a third grader what it is?
What liability is. So if you injure another person while driving on an auto policy and they come after you legally, that is going to make sure that you're covered. So whether if they're suing you, you injure them in the hospital, there's a lot of reasons they could come after you. But that's why even on liability, on the auto policy, it only goes up to certain limits, why a lot of people will add an umbrella onto that if you have any assets. So for those that don't have many assets, so say a young individual just getting going, you could go with the lower limits. But if you own a home, have any other assets, you would look into an umbrella, because if, God forbid, something very serious happens where you end up causing a serious accident and someone's in the hospital for an extended period of time, they will come after you for those fees for the hospitalization and everything else. And that's what liability is designed to pick up.
Okay, so just basically medical bills, things like that of a third part, or separate party.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, you could get sued for a lot of different reasons, but and that's where the umbrella would kick in as well. But 99% of the time, for automobile, it's going to be because you created an injury.
Some of the other coverage, what is comprehensive? Just someone who
Comprehensive goes along the lines where if you hit a deer. A tree falls on it. There's a storm that damages a car, because there's two main types. There's collision and comprehensive.
Yes.
Collision is if you cause damage to your automobile by striking another automobile, where comprehensive is going to be more of the nature style things, like a tree falling on it is probably the most common.
What about the other coverages like towing, glass, things like that? What do we need to know about that?
So that's a good question, because a lot of people just say, give me the base bones thing. But keep in mind, towing, unless you have AAA, which is, great option, make sure you have something where, especially if you travel around. I mean, if you're just staying locally and you stay local in your town and you're not bouncing around too much, you could probably get away without towing. But no, if something does happen, that bill comes quick and heavy, right? Because you could easily spend $500 on a tow, especially if you're going any distance. So if you have towing, you're going to pay, it's like a copay option where it's $75 or a flat fee, but then it will take you wherever.
Okay,
right?
so it doesn't matter if it's 30 miles away.
Well, yeah, I mean, most of the time it doesn't on the policies that we make sure our clients have. But that's why another thing is it does go on your claim history report. So that's why I like the AAA option, because if something like that happens, it's not going to affect future rates, especially if you're driving an older car and a couple things happen. Because unfortunately, we've had some people who are very good drivers and they have no claims on their reports that we run, because every company looks at the 5-year history, but they might have 4 tows, right? And that because of that, there's either companies that won't write you because it's 3 more claims or 2 more claims in the past 3 years. They're not going to touch you, or you're going to pay significantly more.
What?
So that's why AAA might be that option if you're having an older car scenario where that might happen, because it's not going to affect your claims, and AAA is very inexpensive.
Okay. And how about glass and any other coverages?
Yeah, glass nowadays is very expensive. So I think it was within like 6-7 years, every glass now on the windshield has to be calibrated, right? So when they put it in, so it's not the day of the past where you go get glass and it's $250. Like my 2015 Nissan Rogue, I had a glass claim. It was $250, right around there. I just pay out of pocket because I don't want that on my glass. That glass on
you don't want that to claim
on the history report, because it's the same thing. But nowadays we get glass claims that can be $2,200, right? Depending, especially some of the higher end cars, so they have all the sensors and everything. So to get glass with no deductible is a great option, because the cost of the glass has gone significantly higher. But that's another one of those things where you might not. We get people calling us all the time, want us to shop insurance, and and they say they have no claims, because people don't consider those claims because it's not accidents, right? Which I get. It's not accidents. Their car wasn't in the shop. However, those are like the towing. It's going to go on your record. And, some of these carriers, they would much rather see one claim, accident claim for 25,000 than 4 glass claims for 1,000 apiece, because they're looking at the amount of occurrences, not necessarily the price tag.
And as far as some of those supplemental coverages, what is typically included in a policy and what do you typically have to add on?
Well, they're all individually added on, right? I mean, we typically, for our base policy, we're going to include the glass, the towing. We're going to ask those questions. What else do you have? Where are you driving? We'll know the age of the car, right? So if the newer cars is going to be much different than necessarily an older car. Do you just need liability only? What's the value of the car? So there's no blanket coverage for everybody, right? It's not, well, like the whole Liberty commercial that talks about, customize your options. Well, every carrier does that, customize your option, right? And we try to do that as much as possible. We'll come in with what we think is the best base plan to an extent, but then people can say, hey, I have AAA. All right, take out the towing. And things along that line. And, I own other homes. I have teenage drivers. Okay, make sure we add that umbrella. I have a pool with a home and teenage drivers, and an umbrella is an absolute no-brainer in those scenarios. So those are reasons why we got to have a conversation. And some of the policies that we get from the online carriers or direct-to-consumer carriers, they come to us and they were told they have full coverage, but they might have state minimum limits. They don't have the umbrella, but they have all these assets, but they were told they have full coverage, which happens a lot. And it is technically full coverage by the law, but it's not full coverage if something goes sideways.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the challenge. We want to make sure that if something does go sideways, that you're not worried about the financial ramification of that at all, that you have the right coverages in place. And that's our responsibility to make sure that that's done.
What are your final advice for anyone out there?
Final advice is, well, one, make sure you know what you have. There's so many individuals when they come to us, they have no idea. They might be just doing the online thing, or they are talking to maybe a broker that is absentee, or maybe they're just auto renewing every year, which happens a lot. My mother-in-law auto renewed for years, had no idea what her coverage was, just auto renewed. Make sure, whether you talk to us or whoever it is, that you know what you have. You take a look at it. It's not something you have to do a deep dive in every year, but every so many years, just take a look at it. Make sure, hey, do I have the right coverages? Am I in the best suited scenario if something really does go wrong, right? Because the thing is, you hope for the best, but plan for the worst.
Yep.
Right? As long as it's not breaking the bank and you're making sure you have the right coverages. But insurance is, unfortunately, right now, the costs are just gone a little nutty. And we understand that. And we know that everyone can't have the highest limits and the umbrellas, maybe based on cost factors. And that's a conversation. And we'll try to put you in the best position we can.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just, so that would be my number one advice. Make sure you know what you have. Because we get a lot of calls. Do I have glass on my thing? Or yes,
Yeah.
And what about towing? How do I do that? And that's why we have the staff to make sure you call in, those are explained, but we try to make sure those are explained up front.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, if you stayed and watched this long, thank you so much. We appreciate it. If you want to support the channel, like, subscribe, and comment, and let us know what you want to hear next. And as always, your favorite cameo. BRBG Insurance, out.